Greetings, Commanders. Today, I'm showing you how I found and mapped a Tectonica world that has never been walked on. With the first footfall 5 times genomic bonus, the single planet can be worth over 95 million credits. I'll show you exactly how to use the Spansh filter so you can track down worlds like this yourself. Now, there is one caveat to this. Spansh only has the database of systems that are found, so you're looking for the commanders that go to a system, map it out themselves, but don't actually land or do any of the scanning of the planets themselves. So I'll have it linked down in the description down below, but basically all you have to do in the main fields is have it so it's set to the high metal content worlds, and then you want to be filtering by hot, thin carbon dioxide, the sulfur dioxide, thin water rich, thin oxygen and oxygen, and thin ammonia rich. Why do you want to have these specific filters? Well, basically that's going to be a higher yield for a heavier metal content in the world, which will have a higher opportunity to spot in the tectonics. Now, your reference system, this is where you're going to want to be putting in yourself. We're currently about 5,000 light years away from the bubble, so you do want to be a little bit further away if you're trying to do first footfalls. If you're not caring about first footfalls, you can use this same method anywhere inside the universe and just go for the 19 million. You get the 5 times bonus though for being the first one that actually finds it and turns it in. Once you're done with that, all you have to do is click search, and it's going to pop up the exact system that we're currently in. But you might be wondering, well, how do you know they haven't actually done the first footfall? Well, if you head over to the system map, and currently it's going to be listed on planet B1, you're going to notice that it'll say first discovered. So this commander used his FSS scan, but he never actually mapped the planet, and he never actually did the first footfall. There would be 3 different names here if he did do everything. So that's going to give us the opportunity to get the highest yield possible for the amount on this one system. And once again, using Spansh, in case you missed it, B1 is going to be the planet listed, so it's going to have it truncated off to the side here. So for example, this next system, it'll be BC2. This is not a guarantee that there hasn't been commanders that haven't already gone to that system and done the first footfall. This is just going to show you a higher yield chance of where they've actually been. So you might have the opportunity of getting your first footfall, or maybe not. So how do you actually see all the planets inside a system? Well, first off, we want to start with using our D scanner. That's going to ping the system that we can actually see all the planets. If the planet's already listed before, that means someone else has done the honking. And basically, as soon as someone enters a system that has it recorded to the database, Spansh is going to automatically add that system to its network, regardless if the commander actually spent the time and found everything. Then from here, you do your FSS scans and you map all the planets. You can map all of them out, or you can just find the one specifically for the one with tectonics. Once you have all that done, you want to head over to the one panel, which will be on the left side, select the planet that you want to, and then click lock destination. And then you follow your little mini compass in the bottom left there, and that's going to be pointing you towards where we're going. You are going to need a detailed surface scanner, and if you did the community event, you'll be able to get a wider radius one, which will help scan the worlds much better. A lot of these smaller planets are only going to take like 1 to 2 probes anyways, but it mainly helps for like the bigger planets. Now, once again, this commander could have actually mapped the planet and did the first footfall, but let's say he's holding on to the data for a long time, or there's another possibility that the commander just hasn't actually like fully been able to do it without dying, which would allow us the opportunity to sneak in and grab it for ourselves. We're looking for the stratum today, and once again, we're going to be using the Observatory plugin. We did a video on that. If you guys haven't seen it, I'll link it down. But basically, this is going to list exactly what's here. And I guess it just has like an ideal species, so I'm surprised that this one's not actually located here. But anyways, we're looking for the Stratum Tectonicas, which is going to be worth 19 million. With the first footfall, that's going to be times 5, so that'll be about 95 million. And once again, you can also times 5 by everything here. So if you're really wanting to maximize money, it looks like this Rhorbus and the Tectonicas will be the most. So if you see that little red bar down there, that means you need to pull up some, and then you want to go at about a 45-degree angle to the planet. The reason why you go 45 is it'll enable glide boost, and it'll let you slowly go down. Now, one cool trick is you can toggle on combat mode on and off. That's going to allow it so you can see if it's the day side or the night side. Special thanks to the commanders who helped show me during the live stream last night. And also for showing me this awesome Spansh trick. Now, this is just for people who like min-maxing for per profit. If you're wanting to find your own systems, it's best to just sort of mimic it. So maybe search around a few different stars and see like what the different traits are with that star, and then head over and try to filter based on that. Wow, we already found bacterium. So you can try to match the systems based on the star types, and you have a higher chance of finding a world that might be similar to it. It's no guarantee, because each system is going to be completely unique. And just because it has the right traits to have a lot of high metal content worlds, does not guarantee a high metal content world will spawn. The reason why you want the high metal content is because it has a higher chance of spawning in some of these more rare specimen, which are also worth a lot more. Now, you could also find bacterium that's still worth like 8 million or so. It's just it's not going to be near as much as Tectonica's. And we're looking for this little weird pile on the ground right here. This is going to be worth the 19 million. Plus, as soon as you get out the ship, as long as you have the first footfall, you should see a message pop up. Now, to get this, the only thing that you're going to be requiring is an Artemis suit. So if you don't have an Artemis suit, you're not going to be able to get the sample data, which is going to be what we're needing. And as you guys can see, we do have the first footfall, which is confirmed. For anyone curious about the pop-ins that we're currently displaying, this is through the Observatory plugin. Once again, we have the video linked down in the description if you guys are curious about checking out for yourselves. I do highly recommend it for people who like exploring and finding new worlds. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you're on a planet with a whole lot of biological samples, there's a very important rule. You never want to accidentally mix the canisters up, or else it's going to restart everything. So for example, we already have 2 stratum. If we went and grabbed like one of the tusik, which is the grass type species, that's going to completely reset everything, and that's going to completely throw off the balance. So you don't want to do that. It still gives you the opportunity to scan everything, don't get me wrong, but the problem is it resets your data. So as soon as you start with one species, you have to finish with that one species. And now we have all 3 of the stratum. Now, some of you might be wondering, is there a trick to finding some of this stuff? Well, for one, you can drive around with your comp scanner, and basically every single time that you drive over something and accidentally point towards an area, if it happens to have the biological life forms inside of its sights, it's going to be doing that flashing technique. Why does that come into play? Well, that's going to make it so like the bacterium, we might accidentally like survey across the land and find it relatively easy. So that's just a very easy, simple trick. Another way is going to be to just get inside of our ship and fly about 50 meters above the ground. That's going to allow us to have the best visuals of it. And we also know there's a bacterium sample right next to our ship, so we can start with there. So the tusik is going to be relatively simple to find, and the stratum's not going to be too bad to find either. The bacterium's going to be the hardest one, but as you guys can see on this world, it's going to be a nice white color compared to the very vibrant colors around the world. So it's going to stand out quite a bit more, especially if you're inside of the ship flying around. Now, if you're wanting to see exactly how far you're flying above the ground, that's going to be located on the right side there. That's going to show you your surface altimeter. 500 meters, so as you guys can see, it was super easy to find our next bacterium sample on this world. This is going to be probably one of the hardest species to find when it comes to biological samples. Thankfully, this world is nice and has different colors. If you're on more of a white world, instead of it having it stand out quite a bit, it'll look more like dragon scales on the ground. You can apply the same method, but it's going to be much harder to actually locate the specimens compared to when it's like 2 separate colors. Also, on the downside to bacterium, unless you have like a specific type of bacterium that's worth a decent amount, usually bacterium goes for about 1 million credits. On a first footfall though, that also is multiplied by 5, so you get 5 million, which makes it a little bit better. So the trick to finding a lot of these things, most biological life forms on planets are going to want to require flat surfaces. There's a couple that are fine on like a hilly area, but the thing is, most of the time when you're on hills, it's not going to really matter too much. And also, for anyone curious, you can use your comp scanner inside of your ship, so you don't necessarily need to have an SRV. So if your SRV runs out of fuel and you're wanting to add it to the data bank, all you have to do is use your comp scanner inside of your ship. That is not going to get you the samples though, so once again, you're going to have to physically have an Artemis suit in order to grab the data. This is going to be your exo-bio suits. If you don't have one, any of the substations actually sell at least a grade 1. If you get lucky, you can find up to a grade 3, especially after the weekly reset cycle. And even better, this has tusik right next to it, so we'll be able to go for 2 for 1. Now, just because our world has everything relatively close to it does not mean that your world's going to have everything piled on top of each other. Sometimes it's going to be a little bit harder to find. One tip that you can use on ground is you can use your right click, and that's going to ping the ground with your Artemis suit. That is going to use up a little bit of your battery, so if you're using that a bunch, it is recommended to at least have an SRV or your ship relatively nearby, or to have enough stuff to synthesize enough power for your suit, that way you're not going to die. And you're going to notice one thing, not all species have the same distance requirement. For example, this grass type, we only have to go 200 meters away from each other to find the next specimen. All right, now what all do we actually do today? Well, you can determine which species are worth your time or not. Bacterium is going to be the hardest one to find, which is why I wanted to include that inside the video. Toasty is going to be relatively easy since it's spread everywhere. But the main thing is going to be, you're going to notice that on Spansh, it didn't actually list the other planet. So you're going to notice on Spansh, it only lists the B1 planet. It does not list anything at all about anything to do with A7. So we would have completely missed that if we were just jumping to the system and focusing on B1. That's why having other checks in place to make sure that you're not missing out on anything is important. Observatory core, it's really nice. It shows all the data. Once again, it'll have a check mark for once it's confirmed. The 3 dots are going to be showing that we collected it. Now, what else can you do to maximize your profit? Well, once again, you head over to the system map. You want to make sure that you discover all the planets inside the zone. That way you can tell what all is actually there for observatory, because it's going to have all the planets data before it'll list them. But for example, this one, it only shows first discovered by. Well, now once we head over to B1, you're going to notice that it says First-Footfall by Cretaceous Acid. If you don't see the first footfall, that means that you're going to be the first commander that steps on that planet, and you're going to get that 5 times bonus. You are going to have to turn in your data to the Vista Genomics to finalize the earnings. Just because you grabbed it now, let's say another commander decided to come out to this exact system and grab it before I was able to turn it in, they will get the 5 times bonus before I do, since they're technically the first ones to put it in. So finding a First-Footfall Tectonica world is one of the fastest ways to bank 95 million credits in Elite Dangerous. If you found this guide helpful, drop a like and check out my channel for more high-value exobiology runs. We just did 2 different streams on exo-bio. We'll definitely be doing more in the future. But have a good one, Commanders. Hopefully this helped you figure out how to get your exo-bio done inside of Elite Dangerous.